started with a message no one was meant to read, posted by a man who claims to be from the year 2075. He didn't beg us to believe, he warned us what we'd lose if we didn't. Now, the terrifying prophecy he left behind is coming true piece by piece. Certainly. The encounter. It began with a flicker, barely noticeable, on the edge of a forgotten forum buried in the deepest recesses of the dark web. The post was titled, "Warning from 2075. Everything changes this year." No fanfare, no attention. Just a line of text and a username, chrono_7. Ethan Cole, a freelance investigative journalist with a soft spot for the absurd, wasn't looking for prophecies that night. He was 3 cups deep into stale coffee, chasing leads on a government-backed surveillance initiative when the thread's timestamp caught his eye, posted 30 seconds ago. Viewed by no one. He clicked. The first message was oddly clinical, stripped of sensationalism. "I am not here to convince you. I'm here to log the warning. Events will escalate beginning March 2025. What follows will alter your concept of order, safety, and truth. I was born in 2043. I escaped in 2073. I write this to prevent the fracture." Ethan leaned back in his chair, skeptical but intrigued. The internet was full of apocalypse preachers, but this felt different. There were no links, no donation buttons. Just a long list of events, timestamps, and technological terms that weren't in circulation yet, but sounded disturbingly plausible. Over the next hour, Ethan read every word chrono_7 had posted, logs broken into cryptic paragraphs, warning of AI malfunctions, solar phenomena, and a virus that wasn't biological but digital, living in the neural links of future humans. It was fascinating. Delusional, perhaps. But the language was precise, the tone clinical. He noticed small references to current events, things no random conspiracy theorist would pick up on. A cancelled Swiss AI conference, an underreported U.S. patent approval, a Russian tech experiment involving atmospheric ionization. All real. All recent. He started digging. The next day, Ethan traced the user's IP activity. It bounced through 10 countries, ending in an encrypted tunnel that terminated in a signal echo, something only high-level cyber espionage systems used. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, breath shallow. Either this was the best ARG he'd ever seen, or someone was taking this performance very seriously. Later that night, a second message appeared on the thread. Just 2 lines. "Ethan Cole. Stop digging where the soil is thin. You'll fall through." His blood chilled. He hadn't posted. Hadn't replied. No one knew he was watching, except whoever this was. Whoever he was. That was the moment it stopped being an online curiosity. It became a puzzle, a threat, a question that twisted in his chest. Because now, Ethan wasn't just a reader. He was a participant. He refreshed the thread. It was gone. Thread deleted. Account wiped. Like it had never existed. But Ethan knew better. The future hadn't just called. It had pointed a finger at him. And it wasn't finished. The message. The days that followed blurred into obsession. Ethan couldn't sleep. Every hour not spent digging was spent watching, waiting for chrono_7 to return. He searched mirrors of the forum, archived caches, even peer-to-peer logs passed around in cryptography circles. Nothing. But his gut told him the story wasn't over. Then, 3 nights later, it reappeared. Not on the forum, but in his inbox. A burner email with no subject, no address traceable. Just a text file. Inside, 1 word sat at the top. Verification. Below it was a 12-page document. Dense. Structured. A timeline. March 12, 2025. AI miscommunication in financial prediction systems leads to automated sell-offs, wiping $3.4 trillion from global markets in 14 hours. May 6, 2025. A moderate solar flare overwhelms aging satellites, disrupting GPS and communications over 3 continents. June 18, 2025. A synthetic viral code mutates inside a private neural interface prototype, scrambling test subjects' perception of time and speech. The incident is buried. Ethan's breath caught. These weren't predictions, they were surgical strikes. Technically possible. Logically terrifying. Alongside the timeline were embedded references, declassified documents, patent filings, and private research group rosters. All real. All current. But what shook him wasn't the information. It was the note at the bottom. You wrote about the EMP tests in Arizona before the media caught up. You predicted the 2022 drone riots in Lebanon. You know how to see what's hidden. That's why I chose you. If you want the rest, come to Terminal 3, Gate 14. Friday, 3:33 a.m. No luggage. It was signed, Chrono_7. Ethan's rational mind rebelled. A time traveler. Secret knowledge. None of it made sense. But neither did someone knowing about articles he'd never published, drafts left in encrypted folders. Someone had access. Someone was watching him. He called a contact at an East Coast cybersecurity firm, asking casually if they'd ever seen the name Chrono_7 in flagged behavior databases. The man on the other end went silent for a long moment before speaking again. "You don't ask about that name," he said flatly. "Not unless you want people showing up at your door." Click. By Friday, Ethan had stopped caring about logic. He arrived at the airport half expecting a prank or an empty terminal. But Gate 14 wasn't abandoned. A man in a maintenance uniform stood at the corner, unmoving. As Ethan approached, he turned without a word and handed over a small device, like a pager from the 90s. He disappeared down the hallway before Ethan could speak. The device lit up. It displayed only one sentence. "The Earth will remain. But humanity must choose if it wishes to be part of its future." That night, Ethan sat in his apartment, the city quiet around him, the device glowing faintly on the table. It didn't explain anything. But somehow, he knew, this wasn't a warning anymore. It was a countdown. The unfolding events. March arrived like a whisper, cold and uncertain. Ethan hadn't told anyone about the device. It remained on his desk, its message unchanged, its presence unnerving. He tried to return to normal life, writing assignments, fact-checking reports, but his focus kept splintering. Then the market crashed. It began with whispers of a glitch inside an algorithm used by multiple trading platforms. Within hours, stocks plummeted. Automated systems triggered sell-offs, each loop amplifying the fall. The Dow dropped 6,200 points in a single day, the worst since records began. Experts blamed AI miscommunication. Ethan sat frozen, eyes on the newsfeed. March 12th. Exactly as Chrono_7 had written. This wasn't coincidence. It was orchestration. He scrambled through the original timeline, rereading the next warning. May 6th. Solar flare. Satellites down. He emailed cybersecurity experts, AI researchers, even a former Pentagon analyst. No one responded, except one. A woman named Dr. Lena Varus, who once consulted on electromagnetic pulse simulations for NASA. Her reply was simple. "We ran a solar impact model 3 weeks ago. The results weren't shared with the public. But your date, May 6th, is the projected peak of a Class X flare. Who are you?" Ethan didn't reply. He couldn't risk pulling her deeper. Weeks passed. On the night of May 5th, the city's lights blinked once, then twice. For 20 full minutes, GPS went dark across eastern North America. Commercial planes were rerouted. Satellites glitched. Telecommunications scrambled. And just like that, the light returned. The official report: temporary disruption due to solar activity. Nothing more. But Ethan knew. He checked the device. Still glowing. Still counting. Then came June. The biotech breach wasn't national news. In fact, it barely made a ripple. But buried in a European tech journal was an article about a prototype neural implant developed by a startup called Novasyn. During testing, 3 subjects reportedly experienced temporary psycholinguistic breakdown, loss of time comprehension, auditory hallucinations, and scrambled memory. Novasyn denied all allegations. The story vanished within a day. But Ethan had seen the name before, tucked deep in Chrono_7's file. Novasyn's founder was listed under a future warning: neural divergence begins with him. Panic gnawed at Ethan's nerves. He wasn't a prophet. He wasn't a hacker or a spy. He was just a man who asked too many questions, and now the answers were spilling into reality like a flood no one else could see. In desperation, he tried to contact Chrono_7 again. He posted encrypted messages on private forums, left coded comments in hidden threads. No reply. Until one night, he opened his laptop and found a single sentence blinking in an empty terminal window. The final test is not global. It is personal. The cursor blinked. Ethan stared at the screen, his mind racing. The events were no longer predictions, they were instructions. And somewhere in the chaos, a decision was waiting. Not for governments. Not for scientists. For him. The chilling climax. The apartment had never felt so quiet. Ethan stared at the glowing message on his screen. The final test is not global. It is personal. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. His phone was turned off. The pager-like device hadn't changed, but its quiet hum had begun to feel like a second heartbeat, watching him, waiting. He couldn't go to the authorities. What would he say? That the future had contacted him through the internet and correctly predicted a market collapse, a solar flare, and a biotech breach? No. He needed answers. That night, at exactly 3:33 a.m., the same time he'd received the device, a video file appeared on his laptop. No sender, no name. Just the file name, Witness. He clicked play. The screen filled with shifting, distorted footage, silent at first. Cities in ruins. Smoke choking the skyline. Self-driving drones circling above barren streets. Human figures moved underground, hunched and glowing with neural implants, their faces blurred like ghosts. AI-controlled gates sealed off entire sectors. Familiar landmarks stood empty and cold. Then a voice began to speak, low, metallic, and calm. This is not a warning. This is memory. I lived through what you now call prophecy. And I failed. Humanity failed. Not because we didn't see it coming, but because no one believed it could happen here, now, to us. Images flickered faster, glimpses of a fractured Earth, clean, silent, orderly, and lifeless. Cities preserved but hollow. No laughter. No music. Only function. The Earth survived. But we did not. Not truly. Then the screen went dark. A final message appeared. You still have the option we never did. Belief. Use it. Ethan sat motionless. Every event he'd witnessed. Every piece of evidence. It all led to this one, unbearable conclusion. He was the choice. But belief in what? The future? The possibility of collapse? Or in himself? His ability to change even one thread in the great, unraveling web? The following morning, he vanished. No articles. No online posts. His apartment was found empty. The only object left behind was the pager device, still glowing with that same line. The Earth will remain. But humanity must choose if it wishes to be part of its future. 2 weeks later, a new post appeared on the same forgotten forum. New username, Chrono_8. The writing style was identical. So were the references. But this time, it didn't begin with a warning. It began with a story. A man in 2025 who tried to stop what he'd already lived through. The implication was impossible to ignore. Ethan had become the messenger. The cycle had begun again. Or maybe, this time, it had changed. Perhaps prophecy isn't about seeing what's coming, but remembering what we've already forgotten. The future is not written, but it is waiting, and it's watching who's willing to listen.